Hey, I'd like to introduce you to yourself. This is the Seeking Selfdom Going Deeper podcast, and I'm your host, Akello Stone.
Hey, this is episode 12 of Seeking Selfdom Going Deeper. Let's get right to Cole's question.
People who are clicking the Facebook like button or commenting on Instagram posts are providing validation for the seeker. How does that action serve the validator?
Well, what is the motivation of someone liking something? Do they really like what you're putting out there? Do you like your messaging? Do they like your post? Do they like the aesthetic of your post? We'll never know when someone is just clicking a thumbs up. So is it kind of like a wave from across the room, where in real life someone waves from across the room, but they don't come up and have a conversation with you? You know, there's a certain level of distance that happens. So I think from the validator's standpoint, it's like, I see you, but I don't necessarily want to engage any type of qualitative discussion or, banter, if you will. So it's kind of like I see people's relationships in tiers, and I think if it's merely a like, the validator is kind of putting you in a lower level tier where there's not really interaction, but they do acknowledge you. But what also happens too, from the standpoint of the validator, is if I likes a post that someone has put up, there's a greater likelihood, well, it definitely probably will happen, that my post will come now through their feed, because there's some activity, and then there could be some reciprocal activity for a minute, where then I like their post, they like my post, back and forth, and I start to get their feed. Because if there's no liking, I may never even see the person's feed. It's somehow the algorithms just take that away, and then lo and behold, one day you get a post from someone who you haven't seen in a while, and you might like it, and then the next thing you know, they're liking your stuff. So it's kind of like a lower level interaction, not a highly intimate qualitative interaction. And so for many people, they may just go through the posts in their feed and just like, whether they like it or not, whether they're looking at it. Back in the day, Instagram was just photos, and now it's like photos and videos, and like sometimes people put 3 or 4 paragraphs below their photo. And in my mind, that is could be a little too much to read, so I just might read some of it, and I might just like that. But if they're liking all those posts, they're actually generating this algorithm so that your post goes through their feeds, and hopefully they'll like it, and hopefully someone that looks at their feed and looks at what they're liking will then see your feed and go into your social media and may like some of your posts. So it's almost just kind of like this give and take over and over that could go endlessly. I remember putting out a web series called Yoga Intervention, and I think maybe for 6 weeks I would just go onto Twitter and I would search for yoga, anything related to yoga, and I would send a link or like or follow, and I would do all that. Now, and then when it really came down to it, is like, that is just really not my motivation, for putting content out there. It was almost as if I had to play this whole other game, which is taking away from the content that I could be creating and the messaging that I'm trying to put out there. So it's a complicated game, if you will. It's kind of like a game, isn't it? The likes and likes and likes. There's no don't likes. There's various things on LinkedIn, but again, what does that really mean to the validator to like? Do they really like it, or are they just trying to increase their, channel distribution? We don't know, but there are many ways to look at it.
Selfies are a common form of social media meant to provoke a personal connection with viewers. They want positive feedback, but have no control over how people react. Why do you think it's so devastating to receive negative feedback from people you don't know and have no real impact on your life?
Well, I think that people kind of think that those in their personal circle, who they may have an intimate connection with, would never be completely honest with them about how they're putting themselves out into the world, both the way that they look, their aesthetic, and the messaging that they're sending. So the selfie is kind of like dangling yourself out there as kind of like, look at me. What do you think? Am I meeting the standard? Because we don't really believe. I mean, there are many people who, it's almost kind of a contradiction is the people closest to us who should be the most honest with us may not always be as honest as we think that they should be. They don't want to hurt our feelings. They don't think that's kind of an important thing to even get into. We should be in personal relationships that constantly empower us and uplift us. And sometimes that upliftment means that we have to get some criticism. And it depends on how you take the criticism, and it depends on how it's delivered, when it's delivered, why would I tell someone about themselves? Because I want them to feel good about themselves and develop in areas where, they can. Like, ENFJ on the Myers-Briggs, I just read about it last night. I've always been an ENFJ. I've taken several tests over the years just to get a sense of that. And so I always want to empower people, and there may be times when I just would not even go down that route because I don't think it's important. It might be temporary, and I don't want to knock someone off when they're already flailing around. So selfies allow us then to put ourselves up for the general public who may be more truthful and honest because they're only judging us based on that snapshot that we put out there. And it might even be, a way in which we can figure out to some degree the truthful perception that people have of us. But we don't always get the truthful perception even from strangers. That negative comment could be completely unwarranted and completely invalid. So it leads us to kind of think about why they said that and what their motivation is, because some people's motivation really is to tear other people down and bring them down, the whole crabs in a barrel thing. So it really depends, there's multiple reasons why, but I don't know whoever really truly wins this little game, maybe there isn't a winner. I don't know.
Using selfie filters is common practice. You can alter your looks, make the sky more blue, or even add more clouds. There's a filter to make just about any photo look perfect. When did reality become not good enough?
I think reality being not good enough has been around for a very long time. When I think about the rise of digital media and coincide that with like our ability to alter our appearance, to change things about ourselves when we put ourselves out into the world, I think that we can be a little harsh on people when it comes to filters. I think filters could be very helpful when you want to create an aesthetic, when you want to enhance an image. But also filters can go a little bit too far where the person looks almost like a doll or like almost inhuman. There's just too much editing that happens. It's like facelifts, for example. Some minor stuff you may not even notice. It could just be a little, you look brighter or you look more rested. But then there's people who severely alter their appearance to the point where they don't even look like who they are. So if we don't look like who we are and we look like a person that we've created, what happens when we have the real life encounter? That's where real life and kind of the fantasy of online butt heads, if you will. So magazines have always altered the appearance of people in them, models and whatnot, all the way to changing the width of women's hips and bringing their waist in. If you've ever watched, a video, kind of a sped up video where they take an image and they stretch the head out a little and tuck this in a little bit. It's one thing to like remove like some acne from your face or the red eye. If you have red, I don't think people have red eyes, but remember the red eyes. those kind of things, maybe kind of smooth out a few little things here and there. But when you do it so much, that the imperfections are gone, and that's not reality, right? Everybody has imperfections. Everybody does. Everybody looks different than their selfie photos, right? I mean, you could put a selfie photo on that looks exactly like you, but there's certain aspects of it that aren't even filter based. Like, what's the lighting like? What's the angle like? I made this little song once, a little verse is like, selfie, look like someone else. Get the angle right and the lighting just tight, something like that, But it's, the idea, and I, as being a people observer, I've seen people take the selfies and change the angle and all that. And again, I'm not hating on filters. I use filters, but I think you use filters just to, like, almost putting a little seasoning on your food. But if you put too much seasoning on the food, it doesn't taste like the food that originally did, and it's not it's too much, right? So everything in moderation, including the filters on the selfies. And there's no harm in wanting to look your best, but when you look differently than who you are, well, how does that weigh on you? What about you when you see your selfie? Do you see yourself, or do you see someone else, and you see a certain perfection that is completely unattainable in the real life world? So that's all we got for episode 12 of Seeking Selfdom Going Deeper. I hope some of it resonates with you, and hope you have a great day. Peace.